Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this weekly Ag Weather Update brought to you by Ag Carolina Farm Credit. Well, check out this graph here. You're looking at every year, 1948 to 2018, accumulated precipitation for Wilmington, North Carolina. And that thick line you see there is the number for 2018. That's right, we're over 100 inches in total on precipitation, and that makes it 65 inches wetter than it was in a driest year, which was 2007. But look at how anomalous this year was. You see, the wettest year before that came to here. We've added that much more precipitation, mostly due to Florence, which came through here, of course, in September, dropping across the state of North Carolina over 18 trillion gallons of rain. It has been an extremely wet year, and 2018 finished wet as well. A significant section here of the East Coast United States having between 150 and 200% of normal precipitation. Well, as we get into the new year, let's take a look at what's coming our way. I'm just going to tell you something. The pattern doesn't slow down. What you're looking at here is this is in the overnight hours on Monday into early Tuesday morning, the widespread rain that's spreading across the southeast into the Carolinas. And as we drag that front through early on the day on the new year here, we've got more precipitation coming our way. And don't think it's done after that. Even though things kind of calm down Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, look at the system kind of brewing there in Texas. As this next system gets going, this will be where we finally dislodge this trough that's been sitting in this area. And as it progresses across the southeast, it will be the next big rainmaker for the end of this upcoming week. And by the way, do take a look at this. On the back side of this low pressure system as it moves through Texas and Oklahoma, we could get some ice out of this one. But thankfully, as it gets all the way over to the Carolinas, we'll have enough warm air in place that this will be an all rain event. So here we are Thursday morning. We start to see the lighter rain showers spreading into our area. And then as we progress into the day on Thursday night into Friday morning, there's the heavier rainfall progressing throughout the day on Friday over into the Carolinas. Now look at this. As I get you through Friday night into Saturday morning, there will be cold air sneaking in on the backside such that in the higher elevations here in the Appalachians, we could be getting some snow early Saturday morning. And I just want you to see something. This being our second system, it's not the last system in our short-term forecast. As I take you out to the 7th, and the 8th, look at this. Here's the next system coming through on the 8th and into the 9th right there again. So this particular region of the country is set up to see three big weather systems as we progress into the new year. And each one of these is bringing quite a bit of rainfall to start off 2019. Let's take a look here at what we're looking at in terms of total accumulated precipitation. So just take a look at the map that's over there on the right. Over the next 7 days, we will be adding most regions across the Carolinas, anywhere between 3/4 and 1.5 inches of rainfall in total. And as I said, we're looking here at the European model in its 51-member ensemble. The chances here for some snow on the higher elevations are pretty good, maybe picking up anywhere between 1 and 3+ inches of snowfall as we progress into that first week of the new year, getting out to about the 9th there. So I just want to kind of show you the numbers all kind of put together. But the real thing I want to hammer in on this video is this. You know, we've been talking quite a bit about how we expected a bit of a pattern change for the start of the new year, with the potential for some bitterly cold air coming in. We had talked a lot about what we thought these two big features were going to do. Let's see what they're doing now. December 31st, the map that's over there on the left-hand side was showing us the position of the polar vortex in its weakened state there, stretching between Europe and the northeastern part of the United States. Big stratospheric warming event slowed the vortex down, spread it out, and that normally means big cold air outbreaks for the East Coast. In fact, by the time I get to January 6th, the polar vortex actually splits, one piece over Europe and one piece here over the northeast United States. But it's the big question we're trying to answer is this going to be coupled with the troposphere? Now, what am I talking about? Well, the polar vortex is a stratospheric event. It's about 10 miles above our heads. That cold air must get all the way into the troposphere. That's the layer of the atmosphere that we live in order to see some really cool air coming into the northeast. And the issue we're seeing here is that it doesn't look like that's going to be the dominant feature. One thing that will be pushing against it is something called the Madden-Julian oscillation. Now, it's a phase diagram. That's what we're looking at over there on the right. In phase 5, where the Madden-Julian Oscillation currently sits, is normally a warm phase for the East Coast. It will be slowly moving into phase 6, which is also a warm phase for the East Coast, before going into a low amplitude, phase 7, 8, and then curling back around into what we call the null phase. Now, earlier projections had this going way up here like this, timed with this feature in the polar vortex, and that meant major cold air coming into the eastern part of the United States. But things have since changed, and as a consequence, this is what the jet stream is now doing. It is very zonal out west, and it builds into a bit of a ridge here, and we have this subtropical branch coming in like that. Now, this keeps that region wet, but also, relatively speaking, warm. We don't have these big plunging troughs due to the negative phase of the North Atlantic Oscillation when there's a big polar vortex change. Instead, the jet stream is a bit flatter, and that keeps things warmer. Now, let me show what I mean here in terms of the flow of the jet stream. We right now have these 3 troughs. See them here? And they're kind of anchored to one another. And there's a ridge in between, and that ridge is what's keeping things warm right in the area that I'm circling. Now, it's going to take until the end of this week before we can dislodge this trough and finally get it to swing over here to the southeast. So let's kind of play this out and see that happening. So here we are, January 2nd, into the 3rd, and finally by Friday we get that trough coming through, and that again bringing the unsettled weather. But watch, after it moves through, what do we build in by the time we get into the 6th? Well, we get back into a pattern that features a trough out west and a ridge over the eastern part of the United States, and that pattern just doesn't let things cool down. So the ridge is there. And what do we see? We keep seeing these reinforcing troughs in the Gulf of Alaska. And if there's troughs here, there has to be ridging there. And so we need to get the pattern to completely shift before there's any potential for bringing in some bitterly cold, sustained cold air across the East Coast. And at this point, it just looks like we may get all the way to mid-month before we start to see something like that happening. But I want you to understand the pattern is going to stay active. First, let's take a look at temperatures, though. What I'm going to do is animate for you here starting on January 1st. Look at the warmth out ahead of this next system. Remember, that's coming in on some rain. Bitterly cold air sneaks into the middle part of the country. We will have below 0 temperatures on 30-mile-an-hour winds here. So be thankful you're not in the Dakotas right now because they also just went through a blizzard. But look overall at the warmer pattern that stays in place across the Carolinas. I'm now to January 3rd. There's the 4th. That trough slides through around January 4th, 5th, 6th. So this is the weekend, but doesn't cool things off too much. But look at this, January 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. We really don't see the massive cold air intrusions that we can often get with the features I just discussed. They're in competition with one another, and therefore they are not allowing one to dominate. So that's very important. That's a pretty big shift over what we had initially been anticipating as we progressed into the new year. Now, in terms of total accumulated precipitation, this map you're looking at here is looking at percent of normal. Because we feature that stronger subtropical branch of the jet stream, with the polar branch doing something more like this just means that area tends to stay wet as we progress through the first week and a half or 2 weeks of the month of January. So we just keep the active pattern in place. So just expect maybe 1 or 2 weather systems per week rolling through the Carolinas, keeping things wet. Okay, the other major growing regions we have to discuss are in South America. Now, right now we're talking about a bean crop, okay? So we're trying to harvest the first 90-day crop of beans out of Mato Grosso. They shifted mid-month to a much drier pattern, and that's brought in some concern about how that crop is finished in Mato Grosso. It has been raining, but it's been below average. Now, down in Mato Grosso do Sul and down into Paraná, it has been much, much drier throughout the month of December. Even though they had some rain come in recently, it's not been enough to outdo that drought. So what does this mean? That soybean crop down there is struggling a little bit. Now, we're about ready to plant a cotton crop. I'll just kind of draw an X over it in this area. So we're going to have to see if we can bring in some wetter conditions because we need that to get this cotton crop to get going. And the answer right now is because the Madden-Julian Oscillation is staying in phases 5, 6, and 7, those are not phases conducive for a stronger Brazilian monsoon. Hence the drier pattern you see stretching all the way out into mid-January. It is quite wet in Argentina and wet in far northern Brazil. In fact, lots and lots of thunderstorms here in Argentina and Uruguay. But here in Brazil, it looks as though the long-range models are keeping up with that weakened Brazilian monsoon as it is coupled here with the Madden-Julian Oscillation. And that's very important for North and South Carolina agriculture as we look to South America to see what's going on. But I want to finish with one last kind of thing here that's kind of fun. This is what the temperatures look like in the afternoon in Australia on the 1st of January. Look at that. Almost the entire continent over 100 degrees. And that is incredible to think about here. So I wish you all a great 2019. Happy New Year. And I'll go ahead and wrap up the video right there. We at Ag Carolina, thank you for your attention. Hope you look forward to our next update coming out next week. Thank you.